Buenas tardes. Para esta presentación se proveerán los servicios de interpretación al español en simultáneo. Si usted desea escuchar la presentación en español, en unos minutos usted podrá observar en la barra de herramientas en la parte inferior de su pantalla el icono de un globo terráqueo. Al darle clic al icono del globo terráqueo, usted podrá seleccionar su idioma de preferencia. Albert, I'm ready to be assigned as an interpreter.
Thank you, Pamela. The Contra Costa County Library is happy to connect you with our resources, services, and materials at all 26 of our branches. Access more than 1 million physical items, including international language collections, and thousands of digital materials 24/7 at ccclib.org. Visit any library to use our public computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi. You can also visit one of our branches with laptops for on-site use or check out a Wi-Fi hotspot for 3 weeks. Contra Costa County Library's adult literacy program trains and supports volunteer tutors to deliver basic literacy instruction to adults throughout the county. Visit our website and sign up for a digital library card today. And now I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Ann Flynn.
Diane.
Yes, hold on. And for some reason, Albert, I am not able to show my video. So let me just try again. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Diane Bianchi, and on behalf of the Contra Costa County Library, the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley, the League of Women Voters West Contra Costa County, and Contra Costa County TV, welcome to our community conversation webinar, Income and Wealth Inequality, Pathways to Balancing the Scales. Before we begin, I would like to review a few housekeeping items. This is a Zoom webinar, so the audience microphones are muted and the videos are turned off. If you have any questions for the moderator or panelist, please submit them using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. A member of the team will share your questions with the moderator during the Q&A portion of the presentation. The webinar is being recorded, and at the end of the program, it will be posted to the YouTube channels of the Contra Costa County Library and the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley. Site addresses for those YouTube channels will be displayed on screen at the end of the program. Additionally, Contra Costa Television is broadcasting this webinar today and will rebroadcast the program. The dates and times will be posted on your screen at the end of the webinar. Contra Costa Television is available to watch on Comcast Channel 27, AT&T Uverse Channel 99, Astound Channel 32, and online at ContraCostaTV.org. We will also post the contact information for our panelists and the date and subject of our next community conversation at the end of this program. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. The League of Women Voters of the United States believes that democratic government depends upon informed and active participation at all levels of government. We invite you to join the League of Women Voters and support our work. You can join the League by visiting lwvc.org/join. This is the League's statement of position on meeting basic human needs. The League of Women Voters believes that one of the goals of social policy in the United States should be to promote self-sufficiency for individuals and families, and that the most effective social programs are those designed to prevent or reduce poverty. Persons who are unable to work, whose incomes are inadequate, or for whom jobs are not available have the right to an income and/or services sufficient to meet their basic needs for food, shelter, and access to health care. The federal government should set minimum uniform standards and guidelines for social welfare programs and should bear primary responsibility for financing programs designed to help meet the basic needs of individuals and families. State and local governments, as well as the private sector, should have a secondary role in financing food, housing, and healthcare programs. Income assistance programs should be financed primarily by the federal government, with state governments assuming secondary responsibilities. The League of Women Voters Diablo Valley is launching a new program called Points of View. In small groups, participants will engage in an exchange of opinions about timely topics. These discussions will be moderated by League members using guidelines to ensure respectful exchange of opinions. Come share your thoughts and views in small groups and learn about other people's point of view about today's panel discussion on income inequality and guaranteed income programs in our communities. Join the League on Sunday, October 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Walnut Creek Library, 1644 North Main, Walnut Creek. For more information, please email Janet Hoy at janet@lwvdv.org or call Janet at 925-283-2235. We hope you will join us on the 29th. Space is limited, so RSVP now. It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Ann Flynn. Ann is a past president of the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley. She's an experienced moderator for our League-sponsored candidate forums for Contra Costa County local elections. Ann served on the Walnut Creek School Governing Board in the 1990s and retired from the U.S. Department of State as a Foreign Services. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you, Diane. I'm glad to be here with you as we learn more about this area of growing need. Today's community conversation will focus on income and wealth inequality and balancing the scales in Contra Costa County. The gaps are wide. There are many pilot programs out there, and we will learn about a few of them. We are fortunate to have experts in the field with us today. Our panelists will share different ways that human needs can be identified, what solutions will help, and we'll hear more about the pilots being conducted in our county. If you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. At the end, all the panelists' presentations will answer as many of your questions as we have time for. And first, if you'll turn on here, we have Catherine Kagat. She's the Research and Program Manager for Mayors and Counties for a Guaranteed Income. She holds a PhD in anthropology, and prior to joining Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, she conducted research on the political economy of sustainable development and conservation initiatives. Catherine has taught anthropology courses in England, United States, and South Korea. Catherine?
Thank you for that introduction, Anne. Hi, everyone. Again, as Anne mentioned, my name is Catherine Kagat, and I serve as the Research and Program Manager for Mayors and Counties for a Guaranteed Income, or MGI and CGI, as it's more commonly known. First off, I just want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters from the West Contra Costa County and Diablo Valley, the Contra Costa County Library, and Contra Costa TV for sponsoring this event and inviting mayors and counties for a guaranteed income to participate. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Anne, Jessica, Julia, and Emily, and the rest of the community to discuss wealth and income inequality and pathways to balancing the scales. And just give me a second to share my screen for my slides. And just wanted to make sure that everybody can see my slides. Okay, and I'm not quite sure how to put it in slide view, if anybody is able to help me with that.
It might be a tab inside the program. I don't see it.
Okay. Let's fix the full screen.
Maybe a right click over. I'm not sure. It says you're in full screen.
And Albert, would you like to go ahead and share my slides if that's okay?
Sure, give me a second to pull those up.
Thank you so much.
So Catherine, maybe you could start talking and fill in with the visual later.
Sure, yeah. So just wanted to say, because I am a part of an organization that focuses on guaranteed income, I'd like to first define what we mean by guaranteed income. Essentially, it's a monthly cash payment given directly to individuals. It's unconditional, no strings attached, with no work requirements. It's also meant to supplement rather than replace the existing social safety net. And it can be a tool for racial and gender equity. And just to give you all a background on mayors and counties for guaranteed income, and Albert, that's the third slide that we're on now. So just to give you a background on mayors and counties for guaranteed income, the primary goal of our organization is a federal guaranteed income policy. The path that we have taken towards that goal is to create a coalition of mayors and county elected officials that advocate for a federal guaranteed income. And several mayors and county electeds within our coalition have also implemented pilots in their local jurisdictions to examine how a guaranteed income can better impact households. In June 2020, MGI was founded, and it was built on the work that our founder, Mayor Michael Tubbs, carried out when he was the mayor of Stockton, California from 2017 to 2021. And during that time, he established the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration that ran from 2019 to 2021. And it was at the time the first mayor-led guaranteed income pilot in the country. Since being founded in 2020, MGI has grown from having 11 to now having 125 mayors across 32 states. Earlier this year, we also launched Counties for a Guaranteed Income, which currently has 29 county elected officials across 13 different states. Next slide, please. So between the pilots that have already started dispersing payments to households and those that are still being planned, our coalition has invested more than $200 million through direct unconditional relief to individuals and households all across the United States. Next slide, please. So while the movement towards a federal guaranteed income policy has been growing in the last 3 years, it's not a completely novel idea. We've learned from previous direct cash transfer programs. Those examples include the Seattle and Denver Maintenance Experiment, or SIME DIME, as it's more commonly known, which are negative tax experiments. Also the Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend and the Eastern Band of Cherokee's Casino Dividend Program. In the interest of time, I'm not going to delve too much into detail about these programs, but the organizers will show a list of resources where you can learn more about those initiatives. In addition to past programs, we've also learned from reports outlining outcomes from the child tax credit, a federal cash assistance which was administered at the height of the pandemic and really acted as a guaranteed income for families with children. We also have data from SEED, along with spending data and qualitative reports from recent pilots that have been implemented across the country. Also, as pilots around the country wind down, and many of them are actually going to be ending or have ended, full reports that have evaluated those pilots will be released towards the end of the year, but many more so in the spring and summer of 2024. Next slide, please. So what have we learned from both guaranteed income pilots and previous direct cash transfer programs? Well, we've learned that it gets spent on basic needs, mainly food and housing. It reduces stress and improves mental health. It improves parenting quality and children's outcomes, and it enhances equity. As we saw with the child tax credit, that households that were more positively impacted by the CTC are Black and Latinx families who are, to begin with, disproportionately impacted by poverty. Also, guaranteed income and more broadly, direct cash transfer assistance programs had little to no effect on work effort. I do want to touch on one of the major considerations we have to make with the federal guaranteed income policy, and that is that such additional income may impact one's eligibility for social safety net programs in a way that could create a benefits cliff. So pilots have addressed this by seeking income exemptions where it is possible for benefit programs and making sure that all participants are informed of what risks participating in a guaranteed income may have on their benefits. So that way they can make an informed decision on whether or not they would like to participate. So it's incredibly important that as we find a pathway to balancing the scale, that we take stock of and examine what reforms can be made to our social safety net programs so that we are putting people in a position where they can draw from diverse resources and opportunities without those things canceling each other out. As I previously mentioned, we by no means think that guaranteed income should replace a social safety net, but rather it should complement it. Because in reality, there is no one silver bullet and one magic solution to address income disparities. We do really need to have a variety of innovative approaches. Next slide, please. In addition to what we have learned from previous data that shows how guaranteed income impacts individuals and households, we have also encountered long-standing and unproductive narratives that we have to reckon with, especially unproductive ideas that we have about people experiencing economic challenges and poverty. Examples of these harmful narratives are the bootstraps trope that focuses on personal responsibility that positions poverty as a result of moral and individual failure, rather than as a result of ineffective policies that have created systemic inequities and a playing field that is far from level. The trope also fuels harmful stereotypes that are often implicitly and sometimes blatantly racist, sexist, and classist. Another narrative is tying one's personhood and value as a human being to their ability to earn money. Again, this feeds into the idea that people choose to be poor and can simply get out of poverty by working more. However, we realized during the pandemic that many hardworking people in our communities who provide essential service are in fact receiving insufficient wages. By tying one's value to work, this also frames assistance as a handout and assumes that providing resources to people will somehow lead to dependency. A preoccupation with employment also doesn't take into account that there is meaningful work being done that is never paid, such as caring for a child or a parent, being a student, being an artist, and creating work that contributes to our society that sometimes doesn't always and automatically result in paid labor. There's also a misconception that if you give people money, they would stop working, which is simply not true. As we saw from reports evaluating the child tax credit and the SEED report, along with studies on the administration of unemployment benefits during the pandemic, all of these forms of assistance have very little effect on people stopping working. In fact, during the pandemic, states that ended unemployment benefits early had pretty much the same amount of job growth as those states that continued unemployment benefits and offered pandemic-related extra aid. Qualitative research has also shown that with cash assistance, people were able to not be consumed by work in a way that compromises their health and well-being. And they had a better work-life balance in order to perhaps spend more time with the family or engage in self-care. Next slide, please. So data from previous studies are incredibly important and informative, and we learn a great deal from them. But I do just want to remind everyone that behind those data are people and personal and intimate stories of one's lived experience, like the experiences of Falaviana, Cassandra, and Tomas, who are all past pilot participants. Next slide, please. For this reason, mayors and counties for a guaranteed income advocates for policies that provide an income for all. We champion targeted, permanent state and local guaranteed income programs that can impact the most vulnerable groups in our communities. We also see opportunities for reimagining current federal guaranteed income programs that could be guaranteed income-like, such as modernizing the earned income tax credit so that it's administered monthly rather than a one lump sum payment, or making the child tax credit permanent. We also call for an improvement on social safety net programs to make them more flexible and to center trust, dignity, and agency. So for example, HUD is currently examining ways to provide direct rental assistance where funds that cover housing costs may go directly to tenants instead of landlords. Next slide, please. So in closing, I just want to say that we are at a crucial turning point, especially with what we've gone through as a society in the last 3 years. We understand that income disparities, racial and gender wealth gaps are a result of past policy decisions. And it really is through policy that we can create change and form a new model that better serves people, households, and communities. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Anne.
You're muted, Anne.
Muted. Thank you. Thanks, Catherine. Very, very good. Good to know. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Julia Quintero from Monument Impact. Julia is a recent graduate of Texas State University, where she received a Master of Arts in Anthropology. Much of her work has centered on immigration on the US-Mexico border, migrant rights, gender studies, and advocacy. She currently serves as the project manager for Elevate Concord, Monument Impact's family equity pilot, where she is overseeing the pilot's launch, progress, and evaluation. Having grown up in the Monument Corridor, Julia knows how impactful a project like this will be for families in the community that she will be working directly with in this pilot. Julia is excited to see the impact that cash assistance will have on their lives and to share their stories with the community. So Julia, tell us about what's going on in Concord.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. All righty. Everybody can see my screen, hopefully. All right. Hi, everybody. As Anne said, my name is Julia Quintero. I am the product manager for Elevate Concord, Monument Impact's Family Economic Equity Pilot. And I'm very excited to be here with all of you to tell you a little bit more about the pilot. We actually just selected our families, so we're really excited to get to know them. And I'm really excited to share a little bit about how we got here and what the next 2 years will look like for the family. So just to start, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Monument Impact. We are a nonprofit organization here in Concord that has been serving the community for over 23 years. And our mission is to ensure that folks in our community can have an equitable share of social and economic wealth in the region. And this is done under our 3 core pillars of asset building, community engagement, and healthy community. All of these pillars have different programs like technology courses, mental health classes, civic engagement, all of these different things that really stem from us knowing the community and trying to best address their needs. And so how we got to Elevate Concord, in early 2022, Monument Impact received over 50 calls a week from community members who needed some sort of assistance, whether that was rental assistance, employment referrals, or other kinds of resources. And it became very evident that a lot of our community members hadn't fully recovered from the pandemic. And we know that many of our community members, specifically immigrants and refugees, were largely left out of COVID relief aid. And so in order for us to best address this need in our community, we spent a long time researching the best option and ended up at guaranteed income. And through that research, we also had been working with the Contra Costa Guaranteed Income Working Group and found that so many of our community members were struggling to meet their basic needs even pre-pandemic, right? In Contra Costa, it takes 3 minimum wage jobs to afford housing. And we know that housing justice and economic justice are interlinked, as housing tends to be the highest expense for families with low incomes. And so we Monument Impact organized community members to have the City of Concord use ARPA funds for programs like Elevate, and we were awarded $1.5 million in ARPA funds to create this program. So the Elevate Concord, what it is it will serve 120 families by providing them $500 a month for a year. And we are also giving families a one-time cash gift of $2,500 at the beginning to help stabilize their financial situation. This could be anything from paying owed rent, or to fixing their car, or even just starting a savings account. For our criteria, it had to be single parents who were living in Concord, who had at least one child under the age of 12, who earned $55,000 or less annually, who lost income during COVID, and who faces housing insecurity, which, given the prices of rent in the area, it tends to be an overwhelming amount of our community members. In terms of our funders, like I said, the City of Concord awarded us $1.5 million in ARPA funds for this project, but we also have some funding from private organizations like YNH Soda Foundation, the Latino Community Foundation, and Community Financial Resources. We also worked with a couple of partners. First, we are working with Up Together, which is a national organization that is really aligned to our work here at Monument Impact by investing in people and trying to change systems that keep people in poverty. They have helped us randomly select 120 families from eligible applications. We wanted to make sure that everybody had a fair chance at receiving this help, which is why we decided to go through a third party. And Up Together will also help us distribute our monthly payments. We also decided to work with some community partners, organizations in town, and some elementary schools in order to identify potential participants. We know that these other organizations have built-in trust with their participants, and we also know that it can be difficult for people to ask for help. So we wanted just to make sure that, one, we were able to reach as many people as we could, and two, that they would be trusting of this whole process. In terms of our application process, we started with doing a bunch of community outreach. We were going to the elementary schools. We were having people, our community promotoras, go to grocery stores, apartment complexes, and having people fill out interest forms to see if they even met the basic criteria. And then they were invited to schedule an appointment to complete their application. And there they were able to register on the Up Together site and do some document verification. And we ended up receiving 185 applicants, all who met this criteria, which we were very excited about. And then as of yesterday, we have selected all of our participants, and they will be receiving their first payment next month. They will be receiving $500 first, and then the day after, the $2,500 gift, which is really exciting. We've already had so many people calling our office or stopping by to tell us, that they're so thankful and that they are very excited to be able to participate in Elevate Concord. Like most other pilot programs, we have an evaluation component. We will be working with Dr. Rosa Maria Sternberg, who is an adjunct professor at UCSF. She has she has been working with Monument Impact for years now through our mental health program. So she knows the organization, she knows the community, and she will be helping us through collecting qualitative and quantitative data for 2 years. So participants will receive the $500 a month for 1 year, and then we will continue to check in with them for the following year. Through this, there'll be quarterly surveys through which everybody will receive $35 in the first year for completing their survey, and then $75 for the following year. And to really capture more rich narrative narratives from our participants, we have decided to do storytelling and select some storytellers from our participants. As Catherine said, right, this data is much more than just numbers. It's actual people, it's their real lives. So we really wanted to make sure that we gave people a platform to share that with us, and they were receiving $100 for their time every interview. And of course, this data will be shared with the City of Concord and the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors as well. In terms of our goals, first and foremost, on a more individual level, we want to provide families with some financial relief. We work really closely with our community, and so we know that there's an overwhelming need, and we really want to help kind of build this strong economic flooring for families. And then on a larger scale, we really want to demonstrate that by providing this strong economic floor, our income floor, parents can build their worker power, they can find better jobs, they can improve their health, they can have a more stable income, they can spend more time with their children. And ultimately, what we want Elevate to be is to be a tool of advocacy. We really want to build a strong community-informed collaborative movement in Contra Costa, right, for guaranteed income, for policies that support housing as a human right, and also hoping to add to the existing research of guaranteed income, and to really build support throughout the county that really shows that people should have the right to be able to meet their basic needs and to build savings without having to work multiple jobs, right? Which is the reality for a lot of people in Concord. And so we are very excited to be the first guaranteed income program in Concord, and we're very excited to work with the families and see how this cash assistance will affect them and impact their lives. So with that, I am done.
Thank you very much, Julia. I'm so impressed that you have such a collaboration of your funding sources. You've got public money, the City of Concord Foundation. That is really outstanding. So thank you very much. I'm so anxious to hear how the pilot turns out. So thank you. Okay, next we will have Jessica Trevena, who is the director of the Richmond Rapid Response Fund. She's a Bay Area native, a resident of Richmond, and a first-generation college graduate. Jessica has dedicated her career to supporting justice by eliminating barriers. She brings a lot of experience as an organizer and an advocate for the most vulnerable. To Jessica, the heart of system change is always the people. She believes in community care and healing that honors Black, Indigenous, and Brown people and their ancestral heritage. Jessica will tell us about the Abundant Birth Project in Richmond, which is just beginning now. So, Jessica?
Hi, and so sorry, I'm like going, clicking through these slides really quickly, but we'll get to the good stuff. So yes, my name is Jessica Trevena. Thank you so much for having me and for everyone who's presented so far. Richmond Rapid Response Fund quickly came out of the pandemic as an emergent fund to really address the needs of the basic needs and kind of recovery and financial security for Richmond residents. And a lot of the work of the CARES Coalition supported that work. During the time, we provided direct cash grants and rent relief, and we're kind of really excited to continue with our mission to include guaranteed income as a cash program and as an intervention for poverty and equity that we could support. And in this time, we are building out a program for Richmond. We also had an opportunity to be a part of a really amazing program that is expanding statewide. So I'll tell you a little bit about that work. So this is a really awesome collaborative effort. And I am gonna, there we go. advance the slides. So telling you a little bit about, so we know that, and we're going to focus a little bit, we were talking about economics, but folks also mentioned there were like racial wealth gaps, right? And gender wealth gaps as well. So we're going to get into it. So the rate of preterm birth amongst non-Hispanic, Black and white birthing people by county in California, and these are looking at the counties that this particular project, the Abundant Birth Project, is expanding to. So I'm going to actually stop looking at myself. And so you see that there's big disparities here in each county if you take a look at the preterm births. And here is Contra Costa County. So preterm birth is really inextricably linked to cycles of poverty, where poverty leads to toxic stress, preterm birth, which impacts development and also then continues to impact lower educational achievement and low-wage jobs, and it kind of continues in that cycle. We also know that there's an income gap by race, which has been mentioned earlier, and we see that here. We know that there's a connection between financial stress and poor birth outcomes. My background is in public health before kind of really working on economic justice. And so this is a conversation that's been had for quite a while, but it's also honestly screaming at us if we're really looking at the data and the continued gaps. So folks who are living below the poverty line are at increased risk of exposure to pollution, crime, domestic violence, and at increased risk for preterm birth and slow fetal growth. And research has shown education and income or occupation can have an impact on birth outcomes, but not in the staggering way that actually race or poverty does, or excuse me, that race does. So many folks assume that these numbers are due to the difference in behavior, but data is really showing us that that's not the case. Some of the factors associated with preterm birth just include being Black at all. That's how significant this is. Recognizing that racism is a root cause and that there's nothing inherent about Black skin that increases the risk biologically, except for the overexposure to racism, interpersonal, internalized, and structural. And certainly we know when it comes to our medical needs and our economic needs, structural is the big opportunity, right? Systems change. We have to do different. The Abundant Birth Project is a program that provides $1,000 monthly through pregnancy and through 6 months of postpartum. And it's the first of its kind in the United States. This money is an unconditional guaranteed income, which folks have talked about. And this program was originally piloted with 151 Black and Pacific Islander pregnant folks in San Francisco. The enrollment for that started in June 2021 and completed in December 2022. So guaranteed income is a regular cash payment with no strings attached and no work requirements. And studies show that having additional cash improves health, right? So we've seen that it improves a lot of things, but it also improves our health. And the guiding principles of the Abundant Birth Project are that we believe, trust, value, and adore Black people, women, and mamas, that Black people, women, and mamas are worthy. And through our work, we're committed to elevating the voice of those most affected by preterm birth. So just looking at how a little bit about the original pilot that has created the expansion for what we're going to be doing here in San Francisco, that in 2019, folks were dreaming and a research team was hired. That was in September. By January, February, they were training community researchers and getting the design sessions together by that fall. Juneteenth, the program was launched, the application was launched. And the first abundance drawing was in July. So the abundance drawing is essentially the lottery in which folks become selected to participate in the program. By September of the next year, CalFresh and CalWorks waivers were secured. And by June of that same year, 100 mamas were enrolled in the Abundant Birth Project. And so as things have finished up, there's continued and ongoing evaluation and the expansion of the project. So the design of the project at the San Francisco level and for statewide has been very intentional. It's really been about how do we design a program that centers the needs and experience of mamas and birthing people, and has been done in conjunction with community. So centering the voices of mamas has really been about using the expert opinion practice, but weighing the voices and the votes of mamas against kind of other best practice learnings. And the program includes both cash and abundance coaching. So it's an optional one-on-one individualized support with goals in addition to receiving this monthly income. That includes referrals to services that could be like job development, financial services, nutritional housing services, and other safety net community programming that support families. And there's also check-ins with folks. And so drawings are done like intermittently, and it's really exciting to be able to offer that lottery to folks to come into the program. Benefits protection has been secured. Actually, there's some folks in the room or that I've heard or seen in the chat who really worked here in Contra Costa County to protect benefits. So as far as the Abundant Birth Project program here in Contra Costa is concerned, we have secured waivers from EDD, CalFresh, CalWorks, Medi-Cal, and are continuing to work with the IRS as well as with HUD to think about or to protect housing in conjunction with our partners in San Francisco who've done it. So kind of leading the way on making sure we're protecting benefits to ensure this program. Oh, and WIC, we're still working on that. So there were 565 applicants to the San Francisco program. And here is the breakdown of race and ethnicity. And so folks were, it was broken down by folks who were eligible and ineligible. And the final enrollment meant that 151 mamas were enrolled and there were 39 abundance drawings. So a regular ongoing lottery to bring folks in, because obviously folks aren't all pregnant at the same time. And all the mamas from the original program have already delivered, and the outcomes look really, ooh, is that, sorry, I saw this little, this is not, okay. So I wanted to say that there was a note, I'm gonna have to add it later or it's in the slide deck, but essentially showing that most of the majority of the births came to full term. There are 3 evaluation partners that folks might be familiar with: Berkeley Social Welfare, UC Davis, and the California Preterm Birth Initiative. And we're also working with community researchers. So even though we haven't implemented the Contra Costa program, we've already started working with moms here in Contra Costa County to help us design the application, think about where outreach is, think about and decide like which what are the parameters for income and other kinds of opportunities that should be available through this program. So it's an unconditional program, but what other needs can we meet in the social safety net while folks are here? This is our outcomes framework. Really essentially that the income supplement would impact food security, housing security, maternal stress, mental health, economic security, well-being, hope and agency, and kinder readiness. And that includes, and that the outcome would be better health for moms and babies. So we are expanding through the state, and as you see, Contra Costa's on there. So Rich and Rapid Response is like very, very proud and excited to be the Contra Costa partner. So the overall project is going to test 950 folks, 950 interventions across the state to learn and study about the impact and make a case that this should be a service available to all pregnant people who need it. And the goal is, of course, to secure sustainable public funding for the Abundant Birth Project moving forward. So as we mentioned, we're spreading, we're coming here to Contra Costa, and that really looks like in Contra Costa serving 100 folks over the next 12 months. And it's actually a 2-year program. So really thinking about, we have a much smaller, we were small like San Francisco. San Francisco obviously like has a lot more philanthropic support usually than Contra Costa, and also a lot more visibility, pioneering, certain kinds of interventions. So it's really exciting to be a part of the Contra Costa focus of this work, of the Northern California focus against huge counties like Los Angeles and Riverside, especially because a lot of these other sites are partnering with public health departments. It's really cool to kind of be the David and Goliath here, holding it down for Contra Costa County and for the mamas here. So we're going to be soft launching in December 2023. Really working right now on outreach throughout the county so that we can do a slow enrollment and test application, recognizing there's a holiday season. We just hired our program manager who came on this week. We're also continuing to recruit for an abundance coach. So I'll actually send that out with my follow-up materials so that we can make a big splash in January 2024 and start getting folks. There are many. I'm just looking at the time. So just quickly, I'll just try to finish up here that the expansion plans, the kind of eligibility for the expansion plans are for folks who must be a resident of here regarding the R3F kind of Contra Costa site, must be a resident of our county and be between 8 and 27 weeks pregnant. So before the 3rd trimester, so we can actually look at like the pregnancy, and below the income threshold for the family needs calculator. Also, folks cannot be enrolled in another GI program, but certainly can be involved in other social safety net services, NGO kind of family support services of any kind, and have to identify with the priority population. So we've mentioned Black women, the population that are at increased odds for preterm birth, given this study, are folks who identify as Black or who have had a prior preterm birth, pre-existing hypertension, pre-existing diabetes, or sickle cell anemia. And our community design will continue throughout the process. So we have 25 community experts across 5 counties. About 5 of them are already are here from Contra Costa County that we've been working for. These are folks who would be eligible or who are mothers of children. Who would have been or would be eligible for this program. And we've had 3 community design sessions as we've been preparing to implement this program. And so that has informed the application, the outreach, and the design of the expansion. So I think I just have 10 seconds left. So I will say that the application process looks like initial eligibility screening, intake with an abundance coach, the full application, a drawing. And then if folks are not selected, they can, and they're still eligible, they can go back into the drawing. If they're not selected and they're no longer eligible, they'll still be continue to be referred to other resources. And if they're selected, they can join the Abundant Birth Project or go into our other evaluation and kind of narrative work. So I'm gonna stop right there and just say the thing that is most exciting is the ability to, or the opportunity to really connect across the social safety net and really enhance and add value to the work that's already happening in Contra Costa County for so long to support mothers and babies, both at the public and private side. This is a really cool intervention, I think not just for economic justice, but for racial and equity and for families everywhere. So we're really excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. That was very interesting. So Concord is a little along the way and you are at the ground floor. So you are in the design process. So that's really good for us to know and interesting to hear your thoughts about how it's going to be structured. So very interesting. Now for the audience, we're going to have questions and answers after our final speaker. So if you have a question you would like an answer to, please put it into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we will be able to ask it at the end of the next speaker. So thank you. So now we're going to change gears, and instead of programs for people, we're going to talk about money sources. And one of those is, where does money come from for these things? So our next speaker is Emily McCloskey, who is the Deputy Communications Director for the Patriotic Millionaires. It's a group of high net worth Americans who share a profound concern about the destabilizing and extreme levels of economic and political inequality in America. She's based in the greater Washington, D.C. area, so it's dinner time for Emily. We'll get this over so you can have your supper. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Anne. And just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you all see my slides okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Yes, so thank you very much and happy to be with you all. So you're doing such interesting work, the panelists. So again, I'll say my name is Emily McCloskey. I am the Deputy Communications Director at Patriotic Millionaires. Today, I want to give you some more information about my organization and specifically a bill that we recently helped to introduce called the Oligarch Act. So the Patriotic Millionaires are a group of 200 high net worth Americans who are concerned about the destabilizing and extreme levels of economic and political inequality in America today. They seek to reform our country's political economy so that it works for all Americans and not just a wealthy few at the top like themselves. Our members come from 32 states, and if I'm correct, I think we have 54 members from California. Some notable members that we have include Morris Pearl, our chair, who is a former managing director at BlackRock, Abigail Disney, who is the granddaughter of Roy Disney, and George Zimmer, who is the founder of Men's Wearhouse. Yes. So our group has 3 first principles, as we call them, around which we center our work, which are number 1, implementing a fair tax system, number 2, ensuring livable wages for all Americans, and number 3, ensuring equal political representation for all Americans. You see that picture of the 3-legged stool. We like to think of these 3 principles as a 3-legged stool, with each principle being equally important to sustain a healthy political economy in our country. Before I dive into each of those principles, I want to give you some background information about the state of economic inequality in America today, which has reached heights not seen in over a century. So to just quickly put things in perspective for you, America's 735 billionaires increased their collective wealth to $4.7 trillion over the course of the pandemic, and now hold more wealth than the entire bottom half of the country. And to really drive it home, this fact on the slide that you'll see, to make Elon Musk's $270 billion fortune, the median full-time American worker would need to work 4,856,218 years. So kind of puts it in perspective for you. So now I'll get into each of our 3 principles, and I'll start with our work trying to implement a fair tax system. So as things stand in America today, the wealthy are not paying their rightful share in taxes. Research has found that the top 400 wealthiest Americans actually pay lower tax rates than everyone else. In 2018, Elon Musk actually paid $0 in federal income taxes, which is a feat that Jeff Bezos also achieved in 2007 and 2011. The wealthy are able to do this because they make their money differently than most Americans. So while most, everyday working Americans make their money through their labor, wealthy Americans make most of their money through something called capital gains. Capital gains are the increase in value over time on assets like stocks, bonds, real estate, art, things that, wealthy people traditionally own. Unlike ordinary income, though, capital gains are only taxed when investors decide to sell assets, and are also taxed at lower rates compared to ordinary labor income. So part of our mission here at the Patriotic Millionaires is trying to change this reality and institute a progressive tax code that requires wealthy people like our members to pay what they rightfully owe the country in taxes, which they are not doing right now. So moving on to our second first principle, livable wages. I'm sure I'm not saying anything too shocking here, but low-wage workers across the country are struggling to make ends meet. The estimated living wage, which is the real wage needed to afford basic necessities for a family of 4 with 2 working adults and 2 children, is $19.64 an hour today in America. But unfortunately, the federal minimum wage has been $7.25 since 2009, and a third of the country, which is no fewer than 52 million Americans, makes less than $15 an hour. So our members don't think that this should be a reality in the richest country in the history of the world. Also, I just wanted to add, according to the MIT Living Wage Calculator, the living wage for a family of 4 in Contra Costa County is $32.61. I think, Julia, in your presentation, you mentioned it takes like 3 minimum wage jobs to afford housing, or whether it was a living. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting you, but that reminded me of this fact here. So something I also want to stress here is that our members look to improve wages, not out of the goodness of their hearts or for any sort of altruistic purposes, but because they believe the wage system that we have now in America is economically unsustainable. So if working people, if you think about it, if working people don't make enough money, then wealthy people's businesses will fail because customers aren't buying their products. And this is actually supported by studies that show that increasing minimum wages actually helps businesses do better in the long run. So our final first principle is political equality. So I'll give you some information here. So over the years, the wealthy have used their large fortunes to virtually dominate the political scene in America. In the 2022 midterm elections, billionaires contributed a whopping total of $1 billion to candidates' campaigns and super PACs. In that same cycle, 1 out of every $9 contributed came from fewer than 500 billionaires. So as I said, they're really dominating the campaign finance scene in America. This has created a situation where the 400 wealthiest Americans have 22,000 times the political power of the average member of the bottom 90% of the country. And further, average Americans wield no statistically significant impact on public policy outcomes whatsoever. So our members like to think it's no wonder why the tax and wage systems in America reflect their interests as opposed to working Americans' interests. Our mission at the Patriotic Millionaires is to reduce the influence of big money in our political system, in addition to safeguarding the right to vote so that all Americans have their voices heard. We believe that the wealthy's political dominance has become so bad that we're slipping away from democracy and into something called an oligarchy. Oligarchy is a form of government in which a small handful of people, typically wealthy and corrupt, rule. And on the theme of oligarchy, I want to share with you all a favorite quote of our members from the late Supreme Court Justice Louis D. Brandeis, who once said, "We must make our choice. We may have democracy, or we may have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both." Our mission, you could say, at the Patriotic Millionaires is to choose democracy over extreme wealth concentration. Which brings me to Patriotic Millionaires' latest initiative, the Oppose Limitless Inequality Growth and Reverse Community Harms Act, or simply the Oligarch Act, which is a play on the term oligarchy. So what is the Oligarch Act? The Oligarch Act was drafted by the Patriotic Millionaires and introduced this past July in the House of Representatives by 4 co-leads. So Representatives Barbara Lee from California's 12th District, Summer Lee from Pennsylvania's 12th District, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan's 12th District, and Jamal Bowman from New York's 16th District. Excuse me. The Oligarch Act would introduce a progressive annual wealth tax on America's richest households. It aims to tackle 2 of our first principles. So number 1, instituting a fair tax system, and number 3, if you remember, ensuring political equality for all Americans. The act is designed not just to raise revenue, but to ensure that the wealthy start paying their taxes and have less money to meddle in our democracy. So how does the Oligarch Act work? The proposal taxes the ultra rich based on how much wealth they have compared to the median American household. It has 4 brackets with progressively higher rates. So 2% for wealth between 1,000 and 10,000 times median wealth, 4% for wealth between 10,000 and 100,000 times median wealth, 6% for wealth between 100,000 and 1 million times median wealth, and then 8% for wealth over 1 million times median wealth. And you can check out our website for more information about the act and how it would work. So a common question that we receive about the Oligarch Act is, what do you want the government to do with the revenue raised from the Oligarch Act? So to reiterate, I'll say that our goal with the Oligarch Act is not so much to raise revenue to spend on things, but to ensure that the wealthy start paying what they owe in taxes and to reduce their enormous fortunes to safeguard our democracy. Our organization actually has no formal position on how governments spend or how elected officials develop budget priorities. We are primarily concerned with the revenue side of the equation, not the spending side, and more specifically making sure that wealthy people like our members pay what they owe the country in taxes. The way that we like to put it is the average American doesn't get to put conditions on the taxes that they pay. So for example, when I pay my taxes on TurboTax, there's not a drop-down menu that allows me to, select, I want my taxes to go to education or transportation or infrastructure, or things like that. So if regular working Americans don't have that option, then the wealthy shouldn't get that option either. If the wealthy do not like the way that government officials are spending, then they can do what everyone else in the country does, which is to vote them out. But regardless, no matter what, they have to pay their taxes. So to close, these resources will be in the after the presentation. But I'll just quickly say, for more information about the Patriotic Millionaires, you can check out our site. For more information about the Oligarch, you can check out a webpage of our site. And then if you're interested in playing around with that MIT living wage calculator, I also gave you the link for that as well. Okay, and that is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. And a question came up while you were talking. Do you have a figure for the current median wealth, particularly Contra Costa County? Of course, that's what we're thinking about.
That's a good question. There was actually a report that came out recently, I think in the last 2 days, that the median American wealth, don't quote me, I think it's like $160,000. So yeah, so the Oligarch Act, it would work like based on that median American household wealth. So anything multiples above that. Yeah.
Hey, and there's interest in this topic. So this is a wealth tax on assets. The income tax, would that still be levied separately? Because some of these people presumably have income and pay some tax. So this would be an additional category of taxation?
Yes, that's a good question. Short answer is yes. I'd like to take this opportunity to make the distinction between income and wealth. So I didn't know this myself, when I was beginning my studies. So income is basically a flow of assets that someone receives over a set period of time. So whether it's a biweekly paycheck, the money that somebody makes in a year or a month, something like that. It's just a set period of time. Whereas wealth is the total stock of assets that somebody has to their name. So like all of the money that you have accrued over your lifetime, including debt, by the way. So yes, that difference between income and wealth. So short answer, yes, this wealth tax would be levied in addition to any sort of state, local, federal income taxes. It's just one more step in the way of asking the wealthy to start paying what they rightfully owe the country in taxes, which, as I said, we don't believe that they're doing right now. So,
thank you very much. What an interesting presentation. Things I did not know. So now could I ask all of the speakers to come back, put your videos back on so we can do questions and answers from the audience. One question came in about childcare expenses. Is there any effort in these Contra Costa programs to help working moms with childcare expenses? Julia, do you have any information on that for your program?
For our program, nothing directly related to childcare expenses, but they can use the $500 given to them in any way that they see fit. So if that's where they need the most support financially, then they can. But there's nothing directly or very specific to childcare for us.
Well, this is a very obvious example how $500 is not what you need to take care of a child. It's expensive childcare. A question came in very early, Catherine, when you were talking. What is the support from Contra Costa County? Is that one of your members?
Yeah, so in terms of like there being a county pilot that we are partnered with, there isn't a kind of an official county pilot that Counties for Guaranteed Income is partnered with, although Supervisor Joya has joined as an elected member in the coalition, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, that there's a partnership between a county pilot. There isn't yet a county pilot within our coalition. However, there are pilots within the Contra Costa County that could very well be part of the coalition. So Concord is one. I think I've spoken to Julia before, and Richmond, obviously. So yeah.
So is that an opportunity for us, if we're interested in this program, to ask the County Board of Supervisors about it?
We follow the lead of the local community.
Okay, I got it. All right. Now, the pilots discussed today, both Richmond and Concord, are actually short, confined duration, small amount of money, really. It's not a lot of money over a short amount of time. Are you going to be able to develop enough data to do benchmarking to know whether this is something that we should continue going further, whether you've got the right audience, you pick the right people, if the money is the right amount? So what kind of data collection are you doing?
Well, for us, I think ours is shorter. Oh, well, we're both doing it here. For us, the ideal would be to get enough funding to extend it out for longer, because we do know that the data will be richer if we have just more time with the families. But on our end, that's kind of why we decided to do both surveys during and data collection during the actual pilot, and then a year after, to see those kind of differences.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jessica?
Thank you. And yeah, so we are actually going to be running the program for 2 years. But it said 12 months in the cycle, but because of the amount of time for pregnancy and for the postpartum for folks, they wouldn't be enrolled for the full 2 years, but we are going to enroll folks up to 100 folks for the next 2 years. Pending funding, we'd love to enroll more. And so we will be doing evaluation work through the whole time.
Okay. Now, another question has come in. Besides the wealth gap, the wage gap is skewed between college and non-college educated people. So should we focus, probably not instead of wealth gap, but should we focus also on getting everyone a college education or raising salaries of the trades? What do you think could be done? Catherine, do you have an idea?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's kind of one of the beauties of an income flow, right? Because I mentioned earlier, like being a student is unpaid work. Oftentimes, if you're working full time, yes, you absolutely, can have jobs, but it's very difficult to kind of manage all of those responsibilities. So having an income floor allows you to pursue an education, and not be as financially challenged. I will say though that the sad thing is that even with college degrees, I mean, those wealth gaps still exist. And actually, people who have degrees, that wealth gap is even higher than for people who don't have degrees. So women make less compared to college-educated women make even less to their college-educated male peers than if they weren't college-educated. And the same is true for like racial wealth gap amongst college-educated people. That a white college-educated person is has 10 times more wealth than a Black college-educated person. So I think absolutely we should address ways to decrease that education gap, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna solving that is gonna address the wealth gap.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else have a thought on that?
I would say we have to work up and downstream at the same time. The needs are immediate, and some of these economic policies will take time to change. Data will take time to change, and interventions will take time to build the infrastructure we need in communities for us to really build. So everything absolutely that Catherine said, but I also want to just mention that, there's plenty of work to do, right? We can do it up and down the stream, and it's not one approach or the other.
And absolutely just kind of agreeing with Jessica of like multiple policies. There are even debt relief for student loans, that sort of thing, but they all have to kind of work in concert with each other because there isn't like one magic thing that will address all of these inequities.
Hey, now both Julia and Jessica have a very broad range of sources for money for these pilots, and they're pilots only and for a small group of people, but there's a lot of donors that you're using, which is great. But for a broader for the future, we always have to look at what we're building towards here. Would a single or limited number of funding sources be more efficient in terms of scheduling and reporting? For example, affordable housing developers have to draw on more than 10 sponsors, each with different performance deadlines, reporting requirements, and forms. So I can see that having 10 sponsors with different reporting requirements would really just beef up your administrative budget, and that's not great. So would you like to comment on that, Jessica or Julia?
Sure. I'm a development hat. I've been a development director, so I have like a general thoughts about development and philanthropy. I would say that certainly no, it's never fun or easy or sustainable to have to report to many, many different mechanisms. But I think the point of the kind of the overall movement is really to get some sustainable funding from our public infrastructures and really to move from pilots to policy. We really think that policies that can institute a guaranteed income like have happened in several states. I want to say Minnesota is one coming to mind, Chicago. There are folks, I'm sure Catherine knows more than I. So there are places here in the United States where cities and counties have said, we're going to actually institute this as something into our social safety net. I see something in the chat, someone saying something, there's places in Brazil where folks are doing that. So I think that we would want to have the kind of money allocated at the public level so that it's sustainable, and most private philanthropy really wants that partnership to continue to leverage the dollars. They want to fund it, but they recognize that really the opportunity for institutional change so that we can really meet the needs of more folks needs to be through public systems, like the tax system or other systems that are already existing. They're not perfect, but they do exist, and they can provide finances to many folks at one time.
Yeah, and just to add to what Jessica has already said, we are seeing a trend for pilots actually to be more publicly funded through ARPA dollars and that sort of thing, but also jurisdictions finding means of allocating budget towards public funds to a pilot. So for example, Cook County is looking into cannabis taxes, kind of funding a permanent guaranteed income pilot. So definitely, I think the most straightforward way of funding something like this and a way to scale up the pilot so that they serve more people is really through public funds.
For the long-term solution?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, here's a question for Emily. Does Patriotic Millionaires support elimination of the mortgage tax deduction for home mortgages? That's the house, not extra homes, other than perhaps for first-time or low-wealth buyers. Have you looked at that?
I don't have a specific answer for that. I'm sorry. But I can look into it more if I don't know who asked the question, but yeah, happy to provide a specific answer. All that I'll say is we've supported initiatives in the past, like in terms of tax credits, tax deductions for working families, that gives people a lift up. And we, on the other side, we do not want tax breaks for wealthy people and corporations. So I could look into that more. But.
Hey, and we'll talk about that at the end. Of anything extra that we're not able to answer right here, you can send it to the league, and we will put it on our website. So now I have some international focus here. Are there models in other countries for guaranteed income that are more long-term and supported by their citizens? So I don't know if mayors and counties would know that. Catherine, have you done any research into European programs?
Well, I was actually going to say we can find instances of them here even. I mean, the Alaska Permanent Dividend Fund is, in some sense, it's direct cash transfer. They could model it as a guaranteed income. At the moment, essentially, it's permanent. It's revenues coming from their natural resources, and everybody gets it. But the thing is, it's a one-time lump sum payment. But it could very well, if they wanted to, be structured as a monthly payment. But I'd have to. Nothing is coming to my mind straight away in terms of like other countries. But once it comes to me, then I'll answer. But yeah, I mean, we don't even have to look too far. We can find it here. So.
Okay, thank you. Now here's another question for Emily. What kind of support are you seeing for the Oligarch Act, given that Congress is a little divided at the moment? So maybe these last couple of weeks you shouldn't answer this question, but overall, is there support?
Thank you for that question. So yes, we are finding strong support for the act. So as I said, we have 4 co-leads. I forget the exact number of sponsors. I think that we're at somewhere in the teens, like maybe 12, 15. But yeah, so there's support. I'd say, it's probably not a surprise, but it's coming from the Democrat side as opposed to the Republican side. And that does pose a challenge just for right now, given how divided Congress is. So, I'm not saying anything too crazy. The Oligarch Act at the moment does not have, the political feasibility isn't there for it to pass. But we're not giving up. We're still campaigning. And yeah, I also just want to add, it's very similar to the wealth taxes that you might have known from Senator Elizabeth Warren. Hers, it's very similar to those. So, and those have kind of attracted a lot of popularity according to public polls. So, very similar to that.
Okay. And you wouldn't happen to know our Congressman DeSaulnier, if he's is aware of this?
I do not know that. But say it again.
We'll check.
Yeah. But I know Barbara Lee from California is, so that's good.
Okay. And there's a question about Patriotic Millionaires. How do you recruit new members?
I love that question. We recruit in a lot of different ways. So one way is it's just kind of like some of our members will know somebody. So like it's just kind of like a chain effect. They'll invite a friend or something like that. Other ways is, some people just come across our work, whether through, like an op-ed that we had published or, something that they saw in the newspaper, and they'll contact us asking to, join the group. But yeah, it's, a lot of different ways. What was I gonna say? This is what I would say. We do have requirements. So some people ask, what are the conditions for joining the group? So as of right now, joining the group, you have to have at least $1 million in annual income and or $5 million in total wealth. So those are just the requirements. So how do you verify that, or you just take their word for it? You don't
pull tax returns or anything, do you?
Wait, I mean, that's a good question. To my knowledge, we don't really verify it. And I don't think I'm at liberty to discuss like how we go about discussing finances and whatnot. But yeah, we most of these people that join are fairly established in their field. So it's, you know, they come from, I'll also add, they come from a lot of different walks of life. So some people have inherited wealth. Some people have started their own business, you know, from the ground up. That's how they became wealthy. Some people worked in finance, like our chair, Marv's Pearl. So yeah, just all different walks of life.
And there are questions, personal questions about what's the average wealth of your membership. I don't even want to know that, so I won't really ask that. But
Okay.
so there's quite a lot of interest in millionaires, I see. Let's see. And there is a question about, is a wealth tax constitutional?
That is a good question. I'll address that now. So I think that this is a good time to mention that there is a Supreme Court case right now that's on the docket that the Supreme Court is about to hear arguments for in December, called Moore v. US, Moore versus United States. It's pretty important. It's kind of flying under the radar right now, but it has the potential to determine the constitutionality of wealth tax proposals. So just to be clear, wealth taxes have never passed before, but there's a lot of proposals to tax wealth. But if the plaintiffs in this case succeed, what's going to happen is probably those wealth tax proposals aren't going to make it, and it's going to like effectively, you know, make them impossible. But yeah, in terms of, but our group, you know, our advisors say we can very much make the argument that wealth taxes are constitutional. You know, experts have weighed in on this question pretty heavily, and our senior tax policy advisor, Bob Lord, has said multiple times, you know, the argument can be made that wealth taxes pass constitutional muster. So.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, what did I miss from the beginning? So panelists, is there anything else that has come up that you'd like to comment some more on as part of the roundtable here? Catherine, did you want to talk more about education and the education gap?
No, I think, yes. No, thank you.
Very good.
Mhm.
I have a thought I keep thinking about with the guaranteed income work, which is super exciting, that there are just so many different types of guaranteed income being offered throughout the state of California, here locally, and, you know, we've seen nationally and now even worldwide, right? I think it's important that like we all, like for most people, like kind of basic needs, and then there's like, again, I have a public health background, so I think of like the social determinants of health. So there's many things, education, equity of many kinds that we're like thinking about, but we know that our economic policies really are inextricably linked to the outcomes of most of these other aspects of our work. And so just like having dedicated my life to the social safety net, I would say that, you know, income is public health. And I just think that we have to continue to think about just the cross sections and the intersections of this work and how we can learn more and more about how our relationships, our policies, our procedures, and our programs work if we have something like the income to actually kind of glue together what's missing in a lot of these kind of Band-Aid solutions. So I just want to remind us that it's okay to do things differently. Like things have been siloed for so long, but it's okay for economics to actually be the thing that ties us together.
Yeah, that is what struck me with today's panel and your contributions is these are Band-Aids. These are very small programs running for a short duration, and we do have to tie them together when we have data and we know more of what we're doing. So there is a place for Contra Costa County here, state level, federal level. We really do need to work on League of Women Voters activism.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry. Oh, I just wanted to add, like, in terms of policy, the other component to policy is also like, there's the narrative piece of it, that we also have to change our perspective. I think a lot of us in the panel spoke about, you know, the social safety net and how it's stigmatized. And we have a very unproductive and unhealthy relationship both with poverty and with wealth that I think is causing us to use that as a way to inform economic policies in a way that really puts people who don't have wealth at a disadvantage. So I think even changing our perspectives on, you know, what does work mean, right? I mean, work doesn't necessarily have to be paid work or who's working, and or even our preoccupation with how people spend their money. We don't police the way the wealthy spend their money, but we want to police the way that people who don't have money spend theirs. So I think we really need to have a change in perspectives to have economic policy that's effective and impacting people who it should most impact.
Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that I say, I don't mean Band-Aid solutions like the programs that we're running. I'm saying a lot of programs, as a person who's worked in the social safety net and has worked for public institutions and nonprofit institutions, a lot of programs are Band-Aids because of the way that we fund like kind of those solutions. But if we actually can change the material experience of people's lives, we can actually change the material conditions of folks' lives. And we have the relationships that I know Julia has with her folks, that I have with my folks. If we have the relationships and we build the safety net out in that way, and we use asset-based language like Catherine's talking about and really change the narrative in these small interventions, we can make a difference. Otherwise, a lot of the programming is just programming for programming's sake. And they're just a small, tiny drop in the bucket of the millions and billions that are actually sorted around publicly to continue to have the gaps in services that we have over and over again for vulnerable folks. So I want to make sure I'm saying that Band-Aid solutions don't include our small, you know, run at the work, because it's highly relational and that's important. And we're changing the material conditions of people's lives. But most other interventions have been just very aimless for a long time.
Well, we will let that be the last word. So we have run out of time, and thank you very much. Diane, I think you're up.
Yes, I am. And on behalf of the Community Conversations team, I would like to thank Anne Flynn for working with our team to develop this important webinar and agreeing to be our moderator. Her wisdom, insights, experience, and guidance are invaluable to the League and to this team.
Thank you, Diane. Now, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County. And thank you, Pamela Perales, for your translation.
Gracias a Pamela Perales por su interpretación para este webinar.
Thank you. All right. So on behalf of the League of Diablo Valley, the League of Costa County,
Diablo Valley, la Liga de Mujeres Votantes de Contra Costa,
I want to extend a genuine thank you to each of our panelists for being here today. Informative and
cada uno en el panel por estar acá esta tarde y dándose esta presentación informativa.
Okay, so, and I want to thank Catherine Kagat from Mayors for Guaranteed Income and Counties for Guaranteed Income. Julia Quintero from Elevate Concord Project. Jessica Trevena from the Richmond Response Fund, and Emily McCloskey from Patriotic Millionaires. I also want to thank our audience for attending today and for their important questions. This community conversation, Income, Wealth, and Inequality, Pathways to Balancing the Scales, is being rebroadcast on CCTV on the following days and times, as you can see on the screen. Our community conversation on income, wealth, and inequality is also available on the YouTube channels of the League of Women Voters Diablo Valley and the
Esto también va a estar disponible en los canales.
So please save the date for our next community conversation on Thursday, November 16 at 4 p.m. which is going to be After Incarceration, Reimagining Reentry into the Community. We hope that you found this community conversation informative and eye-opening. If you are interested in continuing the conversation, please join the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley for our kickoff Points of View event on Sunday, October 29th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Walnut Creek Library. Share your thoughts and views in small groups and learn many points of view about the issues our panel discussed today. For more information, please email Janet Hoy, and there's her contact phone number. Community Conversations programs are a partnership between the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County, the Contra Costa County Library, and CCTV. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. The League never endorses or opposes candidates or political parties. We influence public policy through education and advocacy. We invite everyone to join the League and support the work we do at lwvc.org/join. Thank you very much, and good evening to you all.